Hydration breaks, ice jackets, cooling towels, and isotonic drinks have been a feature of the World Cup so far as hot weather impacts matches. Some games may have been played in air-conditioned stadiums and at more modest temperatures across North America, but for Scotland, it is about to heat up. The opening win over Haiti and defeat by Morocco in Boston were played at around 25 to 28 C. Scotland's final group game in Miami against Brazil on Wednesday, 23 BST, is predicted to be even hotter. Temperatures could be over 30 C for that one, and with over 70% humidity expected, it will feel much more than that. Scotland have prepared for this, but it could still have an impact, even if Steve Clarke is comfortable with joggies on at training. How have Scotland prepared? Scotland flew out early to Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the start of June, so they could get used to the hot weather as soon as possible there. There was sun cream, tan lines, and ice buckets as the players were put through their paces before their final warm-up win over Bolivia in New York. Their training base is in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is roughly between Boston and Miami, and temperatures there have hit 30 Celsius. Before they had even set foot in the United States, some of the squad went to the University of the West of Scotland to use their extreme environments chamber, which was able to mimic the Florida conditions. The acclimation and adaptation to the conditions has probably taken place quite nicely, Vish Unathan, a professor of sports science and exercise physiology at the university, told BBC Scotland. Maintaining hydration and fluid levels, but also nutritional recovery is going to be key. We know when you're exercising at the intensity these guys are exercising in the heat, the rate at which you use stored carbohydrates is much faster. So the nutritionists with the Scotland team will be key to making sure the carbohydrate intake is where it should be. Unathan also says because players sweat at different rates, there will be individualized programs to allow them to stay hydrated and recover properly. Different gels and drinks will be offered to different players. Are Scotland more rested than opponents? Brazil have players who are far more used to living and playing in the heat, which gives them an edge. However, after a long club season, residual fatigue is a factor at any tournament, but particularly one played in roasting temperatures. That is where Scotland might have an advantage. Looking at the starting 11s from the opening games in Group C shows the Scottish team have fewer miles on the clock in the past year. Only Scott McTominay, John McGinn, and Lewis Ferguson had hit 50 games before the World Cup started, all 53. Brazil also had 3 players on at least 50 games, but their starting side had played a total of 475 games last term, compared to Scotland's 410. There is a fine line between being fresh and being undercooked, though. Ben Gannon Doak shone for Scotland in their win against Haiti, but had to be replaced on 75 minutes because of his calves leaving the stadium before he did. He came on as a substitute against Morocco. That might be a result of the winger's limited game time this season, having missed most of Bournemouth's campaign through injury. As Clarke said before the tournament kicked off, this will be a World Cup where most of the 26-player squad is utilized. Keeping the ball key for Scotland. How Scotland approach the match and the conditions will also be a factor. The game against Haiti was a nervy affair, with both sides regularly giving up possession in a fairly frenetic encounter. Scotland only had 46% of the ball against the weakest side in the group, and then 41% against Morocco. Can Scotland afford to just soak up Brazil pressure for 90 minutes, given the impact closing down and shuffling across the pitch in the heat will have? Graham Souness captained Scotland against Brazil in the heat of Seville at the 1982 World Cup. The problem when you play in heat is if you keep giving the ball away, sooner or later, someone's going to punish you, he told the BBC. The hydration breaks 22 minutes into each half have also been a significant talking point at the World Cup so far, which Scotland will aim to use to rest and rest. At last summer's Club World Cup in the US, some teams like Bayern Munich even left their substitutes in the air-conditioned dressing room during the first half, rather than have them getting too hot on the bench. One way or another, the conditions will have to be factored into the game itself as well as the preparation.